Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me say a special good afternoon to Ms. Brown, who I have the greatest respect for and all the work that she has done and is still doing, in spite of her groans of pain. Ma'am, you still look like you could run up some steps, okay? I just wanted to keep this definition of policy in your vision while I do this, because this is a discussion, and I think Ms. Brown may have some, she might attack me a little bit. We might have a little quarrel based on what I'm going to say in a while. Policies reflect the rules governing the implementation of processes, and it also is a plan of action, which is what Ms. Brown, Hazel said, a course or method of action that has been deliberately chosen that guides or influences future decisions. It identifies behaviors, desired behaviors, and to whom the policy applies. It identifies who is responsible to monitor adherence and how to, and to whom it should read, appeals are made should a disagreement arise. Now, in reviewing our draft policy on gender equality and development, it was difficult for me to really pin down some of these identified behaviors, responsibility for adherence, maybe I missed it. Ms. St. Rose Graves in her foreword said that the government shall promote full participation of men and women, girls and boys, by involving the public and private sectors and civil societies as agents of development. Now, I went to the Netherlands, which I use a lot as an example of, because they are a developed society, a developed country, and Trinidad and Tobago is aspiring to developed country status. And their policy, the LGBT and Gender Equality Policy Plan of the Netherlands 2011-2015, is for me an example that embodies all that a policy must be. Now, I titled my talk, Bringing the Draft National Policy on Gender Equality and Development of the Government of Trinidad and Tobago into the 21st Century. That's how I titled my talk, okay? I felt that because we have to know that the Dutch government is way ahead of us in maturity and I think political will. They have worked through and made the decision that the LGBT community, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community are human beings and have a right to happiness, peace, and prosperity, just like any other. And are we there yet, or will we ever get there? But let me just, one of the interesting things is our gender policy, 73 pages, theirs is 30 pages. So I couldn't put it down. I read it, and it was a very interesting, when you start reading it, you wouldn't put it down. So the first section 1 just says making choices in freedom and safety. The LGBT and gender equality offers people the opportunity to make the most of their lives and make choices in freedom and safety. The Cabinet therefore advocates LGBT and gender equality, the emancipation of women and men and transgender people. Everyone has a right to life without violence and a right to equal opportunities to participate. Discrimination will therefore be combated and more severely penalized. Equality under the law and the equality of men and women and of homosexuals and heterosexuals should be a matter of course. This also entails respect for differences and tolerance of beliefs of others. The balance of basic rights is one of the core values of the Dutch society. Okay? Now we see in the above statement a deliberately chosen course of action that guides and influences future decisions. For me, the whole thing about, and I think maybe this is why we are getting so much problems to really pin down this gender policy, because the minister is the one who does the monitoring, but I don't know if that is practical. And the second part of the gender equality policy of the Dutch government, calling on the empowerment and talent of people. The cabinet regards, listen, everything, every part of this thing has about the cabinet and what they will do and who should do what. The cabinet regards LGBT and gender equality primarily as the responsibility of the people, women, men, heterosexuals, homosexuals, companies, and social institutions themselves. The role of government lies in the areas where the LGBT and gender equality are not where they are not given a chance, and safety and participation are lagging behind. That is their role. The cabinet would like to call on and make active use of the empowerment and talent of the people themselves to make progress. People can, after all, achieve a great deal by relying on themselves and using their talents. No fluff, desired behaviors are identified. And then we have increasing safety and participation, increase the safety of women, homosexuals, and transgender people, and to further the participation of women in all layers and sectors of the labor market. Same-sex couples should be able to walk hand in hand in the streets in safety, and young people should be able to come out of the closet in safety. Girls should know that they are protected from sexual intimidation and violence. Women should feel supported and unchallenged in their ambition to participate in all sectors of the labor market, to develop their work, and to fill top positions. In culture change, now I'm just going through this because I want you to see that everything, the cabinet will take several legal measures to guarantee the equal rights of homosexuals and transgender people, to remove legal and fiscal obstacles that hinder the continued growth of labor participation of women. Above all else, a cultural change is needed. The cabinet will support this cultural change in word and deed. It will invoke the responsibility of citizens, companies, and institutions, and also ask them to make an active contribution to LGBT and gender equality. We ask women themselves to make this active contribution, and essentially men as well, both at home and in the boardroom. With regard to LGBT equality, the active support of heterosexuals is needed. To add impetus to and support the desired cultural change, the Minister of Education, Culture and Science is working closely with specific ministries that have ministerial responsibility and with local authorities, companies, and civil society partners, building on experiences and partnerships of the past years and placing great emphasis on safety and paid work for everyone. And we go on and on. Commitment of Parliament. Parliament has asked for reports on the degree and speed of the impact of the LGBT and gender equality projects in order to obtain more insight into the effectiveness of LGBT and gender equality policies. It went on to talk about how many projects have been completed and the fact that over 160,000 citizens have been reached. The scheme will not continue in this form. The number of subsidies will be limited. The focus will now be shifted to a limited number of programs and action lines. Proven good practices will be given a place in these programs. Now, this document goes on to state recommendations of CEDAW, that is the Convention on the Elimination and Discrimination Against the Elimination and Discrimination of Women. a structure to this policy plan which contains a description of one of the policy plans of the Ministry of Education, Culture and Science. There's also a section on policy targets for 2015 and action lines interspersed throughout. One line of action that is very interesting is young people, the power of social media and empowering youth. And I really couldn't put it down. Now, I am very interested in domestic and national family life, which is one of our, in section 3.2, domestic and family life. So I just want to focus on that. Section 3.2, domestic and family life. It opens with a perfect picture of a perfect family. Mother, father, and child on a beach having fun. Okay? Now, to me that is because whenever, say, Father's Day, and maybe I do attend Holy Trinity Roman Catholic Father's Day, or they big up fathers, and you know, I'm looking at young people in the congregation who I know have no fathers, and I could see their faces fall because all the children with fathers stand up. You know, and these kinds of attitudes that continue to keep us, you know, I guess trapped, because we have all kinds of different families, and we have to begin to acknowledge that in our policies. Yes, we talk about, there's no doubt in this policy that families are undergoing transformations and many are experiencing high levels of stress. These transformations are caused by migration, increasing participation of women in the labor force, changes in gender roles and relations, as well as the influence of the media. The stresses include poverty, the unequal sharing of the burden of care, violence and insecurity, the drug trade, and community fragmentation. Okay, yes, but as the policy said, we have to identify change. You know, what do we need to do for people to change their view of themselves in poverty? How can we help them to cope with the stressors? Those are the things that I think must be included in a policy. We find no lines of action in the Dutch policy, everything, line of action, and by when this action must be completed, and who has to complete it. And they, you know, they give them really some serious work to do. And they have to do it because they are accountable to Parliament. And I mean, which ministries do we have? Our Ministry of Education playing a part in this change in the way we view things, and because it has to be an issue with education. When I was in The Hague doing this human rights program, I just asked, what is your teenage pregnancy rate like? And they told me it was 0.01%. You know, how that, and by now, because this was in 1999, okay, you all could do some calculation and find out my age, but the point is, 0.01%. What percentage it might be now? Nil. Because they are putting programs and policies in place telling people how they should behave, what they should do, how they should think. If we want to change and turn things around. Now, there's another paper to which I was exposed that I use all the time. It's The New Context of Politics by Anthony Giddens, and it gives us some food for thought when creating policy for action in the 21st century. He talks about detraditionalization, which means that globalizing processes eat into, attack local customs and traditions, local ways of doing things. They do so in our personal lives, and at the same time, they also do this at the level of the nation state and larger systems too. In our local lives, detraditionalization means, for example, that women are no longer simply women. One has to decide what it is to be a woman. One has to decide now even what it is to be a man, something which is unusual and difficult for men to do, because men have to start washing wares and wearing aprons. But this is the certainty that is going to occupy our lives in the future. Gender identity is no longer fixed, no longer given. It is something we have to achieve. The same applies to family life. The family is no longer something given. That's why there's no sense talking about the traditional family. We are stuck with the democratization of family life, of which we have to make the best. Again, we do not quite know where this will lead, but there is no turning back from this. I have been trying over the years to redefine family and look at community as family, and our national policy on gender equality and development can attempt to deliberately choose a method of action that guides and influences future decisions in redefining, identifying behaviors, etc., and who is responsible to monitor adherence. All this is part of what a policy needs to be, and how and to whom appeals should be made if disagreements arise. Now, community as family, a group of people working together to build positive and self-confident individuals who exhibit care for each other and who contribute in their turn to building healthy relationships. Okay, this for me might be a work in progress. I have written many times that we must not only attend to children to whom we have given biological birth, but also those children and adolescents who are bringing themselves up in environments where they feel no support and they feel alone. When we do this and begin to detraditionalize family, we will have to rewrite this section of on domestic and family life in our gender policy, because we really have to, tell it is a policy. We have to change people's way of thinking slowly but surely, and we must bring in front of them. Sometimes it might take, if you want to say, a kind of brainwashing, but we have to send certain kinds of messages in all our policies, our documents, our plans of action. And I just want to quote here: we don't accept our lives any longer as fate. Long ago, a woman was supposed to bear children, married by a certain age and bear children. Even a quarter of a century ago, if one was a woman, it was one's fate probably to have children, to live in a home, a domestic milieu, and maybe to work part-time. It was one's fate as a man to leave school or college, get a job, retire at 65, and spend the rest of your life wondering what to do. That was your fate long time. We don't live our lives as fate anymore, so these things no longer hold for either sex or family life. One has today to construct an emotional life more actively, much more actively than ever before. And that is what I think our education system is not doing, helping our young people to reconstruct an emotional life. And this is what we need to do. Any national policy on gender equality and development has assist all citizens to reconstruct their lives so that they can accept responsibility for and commit to assisting the government of Trinidad and Tobago in building, and I quote from the beginning of this, in building a nation that is free of gender discrimination based on the principles of human rights and guaranteeing equal access to progress for all.